Hi everybody and welcome to the video. This one is a tuning video for my B-Class picks. I've chosen 3 cars in B-Class that I'm going to be using for the Open Series. So no more dossing about, let's get into the build. So the first car is the 1967 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray, the 427. So starting with the American Muscle, 4-1 handling, 4-4 braking, 3-4 acceleration and 3.1 speed. Funky little black and yellow paint job, and let's get into the performance. So kicking things off from right to left, conversions, no engine swap, no drivetrain swap and no aspiration swap. We've got a race wing, a race front bumper and a street hood just to shed a bit more weight. No clutch, we've got a race transmission, sports driveline and a race differential. Heading over to wheels, the rim size for the front and rear is stock, but I've gone for these alloys, the Alumastars 2.0 drag race. They fit the bill very nicely. Tyre compound, we've got a race tyre compound, stock front tyre width and the rear tyre width is 295mm, so quite a big jump from 215 on the front. This just keeps the back end of this car in check. Platform and handling, we've got race brakes, with race springs and dampers, front and rear race anti-roll bars, street weight reduction, a race roll cage, followed by an extra light ballast, just to get rid of some of that PI to maintain the B-Class status. Engine, absolutely nothing here, and it's a similar story with fuel and air. Going over to tuning, we've got 28.5 PSI on the front and 29.0 on the rear. The gear ratio, final drive is 6.1, followed by 2.13, 1.29, 0.93, 0.73, 0.62 and 0.53. Decent, well-rounded gearing, but if you do want a bit more speed, drop that final drive a bit. Alignment, -1.5 front and a -1.5 on the rear, quite balanced. The front toe 0, rear toe 0, and a front caster angle at 7.0 degrees. Anti-roll bars, not too stiff, 24.06 on the front and 21.05 on the rear. The spring stiffness is 640 pounds on the front and 555 pounds on the rear. Again, just aids with keeping that back end in check. Ride height completely slammed on the front, 8.3 inches, and the rear is also 8.3 inches. Heading to damping, we've got a bit of an increased front bump here. We've got 3.7 on the front and a 3.0 on the rear, accompanied with the rebound stiffness of 11.2 front and 10.4 on the rear. The roll center height offset for the front is 6.7 inches and the rear is slightly lower at 6.3 inches. Anti-dive is still quite low at 25.3, but the anti-squat, I've upped this, surprisingly, just to try and stop the back end of that car dropping down. And with this, we've gone for 9.7, which for me was the sweet spot. Aerodynamics, we've gone for a maxed out front to give us that extra bit of grip in the corners on the front end, but the rear is 140 to maintain some of that acceleration and top speed going down the straights. The braking force, the balance is at 50% and the braking force is at 150%. Again, these are personal preference, feel free to play around with them. And the differential is at 100% and 0%. Right, car number 2, the 1987 Ford Sierra Cosworth RS500. What a machine. This car is, it's an icon, let's be honest. So it would be rude not to tune it. And heading into the upgrade shop, we're going to go from right to left. We've got conversions, no engine swap, and no drivetrain swap. For aero and appearance, we have a race rear wing and a race front bumper. Clutch is stock, the transmission is on race, likewise the driveline and the differential. Heading over to wheels, we've got a stock front rim size and a stock rear rim size, with the lightest wheels, which I've opted for the Speedline F1s. Following on with tyre compound, we've gone for the race tyre compound to maintain as much grip as this car can handle, with a 225mm tyre width on the front and a 245mm tyre width on the rear. Platform and handling, we've got a race brake system with the springs and dampers on race, front and rear race anti-roll bars, we've gone for a stock roll cage, and we do not have any ballast fitted to this car. The engine upgrades are all completely stock, but on fuel and air we do have a race exhaust and a sports air filter. With all the parts installed, let's get into the tuning side of this car. Tyre pressures, we're going to start with 29 on the front and 29.5 on the rear. Gearing, the ratio I've gone for is a 6.10 final drive, followed by 1.42, 1.04, 0.85, 0.72, 0.61 and 0.53. And if you need more top speed, just drop the ratio slightly, it will help and it'll save you adjusting all of the other gears. Alignment, we've gone for -1.6 front with a -1.1 on the rear, 0 toes and a 7.0 degree of caster. Heading to anti-roll bars, we've gone for 23 on the front and 18 on the rear. Very good balance, not too much oversteer, but the car still loves to rotate mid-corner. Springs, we've gone for quite a stiff front spring selection here, £625 on the front, but a very soft one at 450.2 on the rear. The ride height is slammed at 4.6 and 4.6. Bump stiffness, we've gone for 5.2 on the front and 4.5 on the rear, just to slow the movement of that suspension down under compression. The rebound stiffness, we've gone for 11.2 on the front and 10.0 on the rear. The roll center on the front is 7.1 inches and on the rear it's 7.5, so slightly higher on the rear. This will complement the softer rear springs and give me that extra stability going into the corners, but give me that rotation mid-corner and corner exit. Anti-dive is at 25.2%, not too much dive in this car, and anti-squat is at 11.7. There was a tiny bit of squat. Increasing the anti-squat completely eradicated it, meaning I could still maintain that soft spring rate. Front downforce is maxed out at 155, and the rear is at 230 to give you that high speed rotation and a bit more speed down the straight. Braking force is at 50 and 150% braking pressure, with 100% acceleration and a 0% decel.
Is about 2 seconds.
And thank you for making it this far. If you are here, please do leave me a like and drop me a comment down below. Thoroughly appreciate every single one of you. And now let's crack on with car number 3, the 2006 Vauxhall Astra VXR. In B-Class, this is one of my favourites. It's a car that no one uses, and it slaps, to be fair. So engine swap, we've got no engine swap whatsoever, and no drivetrain swap. I wanted to keep it front-wheel drive. The rear wing is on race, and we have a race front bumper, no rear bumper, and no hood. Over to drivetrain, stock clutch with a race transmission, street driveline, and a race differential. Now onto wheels, we've got a stock front rim size, but we have a 19-inch rear rim size, just to get that PI down a bit. And we have the lightest alloys of the Speedline F1s. Tyre compounds, we've gone for a race tyre compound for maximum grip, with 255mm on the front and 255mm tyre width on the rear. Now on platform and handling, we've got race brakes, race spring and dampers, race front roll bars, race rear roll bars, and a race weight reduction, followed by a race chassis reinforcement and roll cage. Heading over to engine, this one's a bit of a funky one. I've put the camshafts on sport just to try and give it an extra bit of top end, because the more torque these cars have, the more torque steer you get. So increasing the horsepower seemed to me a more beneficial option. And on fuel and air, we have a sport exhaust just to drop a tiny bit of weight, as well as add some power. And now with that done, let's see the tuning setup. So we're going to start with tyre pressures, 28.5 on the front and 29.5 on the rear. The gear ratio is 6.10 with a 2.12 first gear, 1.43, 1.06, 0.84, 0.71 and 0.61. Again, if you need more speed, just lower that final drive. Camber, we've gone for -1.2 on the front and -1.6 on the rear. The rear wheels don't do anything really other than roll in this car, and the front tyres do everything: the braking, the accelerating and the cornering. So a lower camber here is more beneficial. Toe, we've gone for 0 and 0 with a caster angle at 7.0, which will aid in that cornering camber to give us that cornering grip. Anti-roll bars, quite soft on this, 12.06, and the rear anti-roll bar is at 7.04. Spring stiffness, we've gone for 721.2 on the front and 618.4 on the rear. Ride height on the front is slammed at 5.4 inches and the rear has mimicked that at 5.4 inches too. Bump stiffness, we've gone for 4.5 front bump stiffness and a 4.0 rear bump stiffness. The rebound stiffness is at 9.0 and the rear is at 8.0. The roll centers, they're at 4.3 front and 4.3 on the rear. Very good, happy medium. But if you need more rotation, you can either lower the front or increase the rear. Anti-dive, we've gone for 43.7%, and anti-squat, we've gone for 45.3%. Aerodynamics, I've opted for maxed out front and maxed out rear. It just gives me that extra bit of stability in them high-speed corners. Braking balance is at 50 and the pressure is at 150. And the differentials, acceleration is 100% and deceleration is at 0. And whilst I've got you, do me a quick favour, click on one of these videos here and give that a watch. But as always, take care of yourselves and stay tuned for more.